Hi, welcome to my creepy stories here. I'm searching the subreddits of Reddit so that you don't have to. Our first story comes to us from our True Scary Stories about a college creep. Okay, so this happened to me when I was 18, 19, a female living in a college town in the South. I had a terrible college experience in general, but this just added to the nightmare that was my first year. To set the scene, I lived in a suite building with the parking garage attached to it. There were probably 4 or 5 levels to the garage. The top level of this parking garage was at ground level. The suite building was maybe a 5-minute walk down a sidewalk to the entrance of the suite. There was a little room with windows that housed the elevator close to the sidewalk. My boyfriend at the time lived off campus, and I hated being on campus so much that I generally spent a lot of time at his house in a neighboring town. One night, I got back around 2 a.m. The parking garage was pretty full, and so that I had to park at the end furthest from the building, closer to the ramp that went down to the level. I'm terrified of being inside of parking garages, so I always parked at the top. It was pretty dark, and I would usually call my sister or boyfriend if I ever was spooked, but this night was normal, and I didn't feel the need to bother anyone late. I was almost to the sidewalk when I noticed someone in the little room where the elevator was. They had been behind a wall, but I saw them emerge. He had not just come out of the elevator as what I would have seen, doors open through the windows. I didn't get a great look at the person, but I could tell that this was a middle-aged man. I found it odd he was on campus so late, because of all the people living in the building, young and mainly freshmen. I tried my best to just ignore the person and continued to walk on my way. As I reached the sidewalk about 20 feet from the room, he came out and started walking directly behind me. I tried to be rational and not freak out, but the further I walked, the more I realized he was getting much closer to me. It was one of those posts where you could hit a button for campus police. Something inside of me told me that I had not let him know that I knew he was there and that he was scaring me. In a few seconds' time, I had to make a decision. So I just started sprinting down the sidewalk. I immediately heard him pick up his speed and start running as well, facing me. There were 3 entrances to the building. I usually used the furthest one because my room was on the far side of the building. But as soon as I got to the first entrance, the police swiped my card and entered and slammed the door shut behind me. He was right there on the other side of the building. He made eye contact for a second and then ran the other way too. The next morning, I woke up to an email about a strange man that had been spotted on campus. Am I just paranoid, or was I being followed? Okay, so to preface, I am a 24-year-old female and a very rational person. I'm the type who tells himself that they are just overthinking or being skeptical. But I had an incident a few months ago, and I simply cannot shake it. I currently live in Colorado, but I'm originally from a town in Illinois that is nationally ranked as one of the safest, albeit snobbiest, places to live in America. I was home a few months ago in the summer for a funeral, and one night I decided to take a late-night walk. This had been a ritual of mine since middle school, where I walk around my neighborhood for hours to clear my head and find some solitude from my parents. This night was like any typical night, with the occasional late-night dog walker passing here and there, but due to the unfortunate circumstances, I stayed out longer than usual. As I was walking down a road, a red minivan passed me. As I have taken these late-night walks in my neighborhood for years, I'm typically never cautious of passing cars. However, at this car passing me going in the opposite direction, my internal alarm started blaring. I've only ever felt that sense of danger twice in my life. Once when a man approached me in an alley when I was a child, the other being when I was tailed by a man in college who was later arrested for serial sexual assault on campus. Anyway, the car slowed down slightly as it passed me, and somewhere down that street, it turned around, reappearing to park on the curbside next to where I was walking. I immediately turned around to start walking in the other direction, only looking back when I felt a safe distance away. Mind you, this neighborhood is littered with streetlights, so it's not menacing in any way. And my thoughts as I distanced myself was that the driver must have been parking next to his home or the home he was visiting. Me thinking that I probably looked like a sketchy person in the situation. But when I glanced back, My eyes were met by a tall, what looked like to be white man in a red shirt and blue jeans who just stood there, staring back at me. He seemed to be making no move toward approaching any home, and instead just stood there, half shaded by the dark provided by the lining of trees despite the streetlights. He was, I am positive, staring right back at me as I hurried away. I continued back on my walk, this time in the direction of my house. Whatever that was, even if it was just my imagination, it startled and unnerved me, bringing a halt to my leisurely stroll. Keep in mind now that my senses were on high alert, so I was hyper-aware of my surroundings. I was looking to the left, right, straight, and most importantly, back. As I made my way home quickly, I am beyond sure, even now, that there was no one behind, next to, or in front of me as I made my return, which was about 3 streets away. As I got further, I started to second-guess myself, regretting the possibility that I might have made some random stranger feel like they were making me uncomfortable somehow. In an attempt to be as fearless and rational as possible, I decided to pass my street and continue my walk onto the next avenue. As I turned onto the following street, I stopped to tie my shoe. Again, keep in mind that at this point my mind was still on high alert, and I am beyond sure that there was no one else walking anywhere around me, not even within 200 paces. After I finished with my shoe, still kneeling on the ground, I suddenly felt a sense of instant dreadful fear, and immediately turned to look behind me. At the turn of the avenue, a man in a red shirt, blue jeans, appeared out of nowhere, making his way in my direction. He was holding something long and thin in his hand, so thinking it was a leash in the dark, I looked for a dog. There was no dog. I don't want to sound offensive either, but having lived in that neighborhood my entire life, just by the look of him, kinda felt off. Without even thinking, I shot up and sprinted through backyards to jump my fence, enter my back door, and lock every entrance of my home. Again, being the devil's advocate against myself, I continued to tell myself that I was overreacting. Then my back door neighbor's motion lights turned on. My heart dropped. I spent the rest of that night on my bedroom floor, phone in one hand, kitchen knife in the other. The motion lights turning on and off sporadically for the next few hours. Even now, I can't even believe the dumbest assailant would risk attempting anything in a neighborhood like mine, full of bored, rich, security-packed Karens. But I can't shake the feeling that I escaped someone that night. Someone who must have been stalking me out of sight, possibly through backyards, since most of the neighborhood homes don't have fences. The Poke. This happened 2 summers ago. My family had purchased a nice park model home in a campground about 3 years prior to the incident I'll be writing about. It was only about an hour from our house, so we went up there often. It is situated at the end of a road with normal houses in a deeply wooded area. The town the campground was in had a population of less than 10,000, so it was pretty small and quiet. Strange things have occurred around the area that summer. About a month prior to my experience, in the house that abutted the campground, police were called to the house for a domestic violence claim. They found the man barricaded in his room, and he shot one of the officers. One of the officers shot back at him, and he would later die. Since then, the house has had a new owner, but for a whole year was abandoned and had police tape across it. Another spooky thing that happened was a girl dying in the campground in the 80s. One of the other residents was talking to my mom at the campground pool, and I heard her talk about a story that happened at the time where people could legally live all year round in the park. The girl was left alone one day and decided to cook something and ended up starting a fire and passing away. The story spooked me out for sure. Now to get what happened to me. One morning I was sleeping on our futon in the living room area. The sun had started rising, maybe being around 5 or 6 o'clock. I woke up to someone poking my side. Annoyed, I grunted and told my dad to stop it, as it was something he would probably do to bug me. I opened my eyes and turned to look and shun him, but to my horror, there was nobody there. It was early in the morning and I knew my parents weren't awake. Nor would they wake me up on a vacation that early. Because of the strange incidents surrounding the park, I always wondered if it were a spirit or something else not even more supernatural. I guess to this day, But we'll never know. Alright, guys. Well, that's been 3 scary stories from Reddit. I hope you've enjoyed them. If you have, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And if you guys are into any Call of Duty or any other video gaming, please check out my other playlists or even head over to twitch.tv, ChronicusTv, for some live entertainment. Until next time, thank you very much.